for joining us today.
Anytime.
I was looking forward to this one. We have one of my mentors of investment, of sales, of fashion, you name it. I've learned it from this guy, and I think we got some value to share here today. Duncan, before we get started, could you tell the people who you are, where you're from, what's the background?
Sure. My name is Duncan Young. My name is Duncan Young. I was the store manager at Moore's Clothing here in Moncton, so in Canada for all our Canadian listeners, which dealt with the menswear everywhere from suits to rental tuxedos to denim jeans to et cetera. I did that for approximately 8 years. Had a terrific time, a lot of success. Jason, one of the folks that I'm happy to say I hired myself, as a matter of fact. And
one of your Padawans.
Yeah.
So showed up in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt with a resume in my hand, still got hired.
And I hired him on the spot, which I did coincidentally with 2 people during my entire tenure there. So there's a small brag for you. And I did that for a number of years. Loved it, loved the work, loved the product, loved all the above, and had the opportunity to lead some great sales teams, some just great teams of individuals. So that was a lot of fun.
And didn't you work in sales in Ottawa before coming to Moncton as well?
I guess, pretty much a good chunk of my working career would have been in retail specifically, rather than sales. So there is always a huge component of sales involved, of course, in anything retail. But even when I was operating strictly in a managerial role or even a business management role, having nothing to do with the sales floor, you had to be fully conversant with being able to hit that floor and run a till and serve customers, because that's the core of your business when you're in sales. You don't have people, you can't sell anything. And a little known secret, you cannot expense a business all the way to a profit. If you don't have sales, you've got no business.
So what kind of brought you into sales?
Well, into sales specifically in this role, I was recruited actually just where I was working. The fellow who wound up being my supervisor when I first got hired by this company, walked into my place of business, and the first words out of his mouth said to me, he obviously must work in the industry, because he said to me, "Wow, your store really has a lot of sleeves in it." And you don't use that word, that terminology, if you're not working in the business. So honestly, 5 minutes into his discussion with me, which was just chatting and introducing each other, 5 minutes in, I set the tone for our entire relationship to this day. When I looked at this man who supervised 150 people and was not used to having anyone talk back to him, and said, "Excuse me, sir, are you checking out your competition or are you hiring? Because if you're hiring, I'm interested." And the rest is history, so to speak. So,
okay.
Right on. And for the audience, can you explain what it means when talking about a clothing store about having a lot of sleeves?
Oh, I'm very sorry. So
all good.
It means that you carry a lot of suits or sports coats in particular. Sleeves can mean a lot of things, but if somebody's working in the garment business and they refer to you having a lot of sleeves, they're referring to what I see hanging off the suit wall that tells me you have suits or sports coats. So for any clothing store to have a lot of sleeves means you're essentially offering that you specialize in outfitting men in suits or sports coats, which with it should come a modicum of knowledge of how to do that. But as I've learned over the years, that's not a guarantee either.
Yeah, that's
right.
In today's sales world, it seems like they'll take anyone off the street and like, okay, here's a measuring tape. You know how to put pants on, good enough.
And speaking of like things that hang, one thing that like is a pet peeve of mine is when I go to a retail store or a clothing store, and they'll be hanging like heavy knits, and they're just like their shoulders are just like slowly melting off of the hanger, and I'm just like, wow, they really don't know what they're doing here. But yeah.
So Duncan, why, if you got a lot of your sales experience and maybe managerial and all that in menswear, why go towards menswear in the first place?
Well, and this again sort of ties back to my original interview with this gentleman, where quite honestly, he had said to me, maybe into the actual interview proper, which was about a week later, about half an hour in, he said to me, or 15 minutes in, he said to me, so why are you not working at, and he mentioned one or two other very upscale men's clothiers. And I said, they never asked me. And that's because honestly, as could be understood, the predilection, the predisposition to an affinity for menswear, to working menswear, was there from my teens. As I think it is for a lot of people who are going to be, feel that way about this stuff. They will have always felt that way. The opportunity just never presented itself. So I never chased it down, and it never cropped up. So when it did, I of course said, "Oh no, I think I'd love to do that without a doubt."
Do you think there's enough? Because Jason and I also, from a young age, at least I know myself, we're always interested in men's fashion. But do you think there's enough men in the world, in your opinion, that show enough interest in men's fashion? Because I would say no, but that's my opinion.
This is, and again, I like most things, I'm trying not. I don't want it'll. It's almost inevitable. It will sound like I'm approaching it from a whine or a complaint. I'm not. I'm trying to say I think I understand because, and then I make my blanket statement that everybody hates. But the reality of it is, I think what you're saying is true because, and this is largely a generational thing, I hate to say, for our listeners who can't see us, I might be half a generation past Jason and Will, maybe, but
we're millennials for the audience.
Yeah, I'm on the cusp of the boomer generation. So the problem is, and largely tied to that, I'll phrase it like this, and you guys might be the only two millennials in the whole country that had men of some sort of attention to their attire to learn from. And that's largely the problem. A lot of young men nowadays, like, in all honesty, I would see their fathers come in with them, and I would say, oh yeah, and who are they going to learn how to dress from? Because It sure isn't going to be you. And when I say that, what I mean is, and again, it sounds more critical than it's meant to be, but I have a stepdaughter who would be older than you guys are, as a matter of fact. But anyways, when she graduated university, at her convocation in Ottawa, Carleton, which would have been 1995 thereabouts, I went on a beautiful May morning to this university convocation. She was graduating with an honors degree. And I went wearing, just to explain, chinos and a white polo shirt and navy blue blazer. Because, it was a spring, warm summer day event. It didn't need to be dressed to the nines, but at the same time, in my opinion, that's an event that you don't do every day. And more importantly to me, I'll tell you in a sec, when I got there and saw a room full of men in their 40s walking around in flip-flops, shorts, T-shirts, and carrying Tim Hortons cups. And I'm not kidding you. I'm walking up and down the aisle. It's like, ho hum. What I thought was that, and this is what I mean by not having good examples, what are you telling your child who's graduating today?
Yeah, there's not a lot of pride.
You're saying this is not a big deal, man, because when I go home, I'll probably take out the garbage.
Yeah, no, I agree. I find, and there's always the excuse, like the socioeconomic excuse, which I think in general is not a great one, because you can still find some pretty stylish clothing for not that expensive. You can just be wise with your purchases. But all that to say that at the end of the day, I see it as a pride thing, right? Trying to look good is, like, pride to a certain extent is good. I know technically it's a sin to be prideful, but I think if there's more men who simply get up in the morning and put a bit of thought into, like, hey, I hope I look this much better today because I'll be wearing these clothes that I put, at least 30 seconds thought into it. It would go a long way.
And to your original question, original point, to me, it's a cognizant thing. And it goes to that point as well, which is that if you're decrying the dearth of people who invest any time or attention or money into their appearance, I would again say to you, as like much else in the world as time rolls by, what are the role models? What examples do they have? What are they going from?
And that's if they have dads too.
Correct. And so if you're a millennial who's used to seeing dad saying, one of my favorite sayings from listening to men working in a men's store. Oh, I don't got to dress up for her. She already married me. Well, isn't that a great thing to hear you say? So obviously you put a great deal of importance upon the way you look. And if that's what your children are hearing.
The one thing I would say to that comment is she married you because you looked and acted a certain way before she married you, not after.
Well, and more to the point, what I would say to that is a pure and simple, and as a relatively newly married man, never forget this, sir, she should be the only one you care about impressing.
You should care about impressing her, period.
Every day you should want to care about making her happy with everything. So that being the case, I don't, and I've said this to you before, Jason, I know for a fact, which is kind of the funny thing, for as much time and attention and money as I've put into my wardrobe, my appearance, etc., I can say to you honestly and all your listeners, I never once one morning gave a shit what anybody else thought about the way I looked. It's when I look in the mirror before I walk out the door and I go, yep, that's it.
That works.
And that's all that I ever cared about. You like it, you don't like it, well, that's your choice. You're entitled to that opinion. But I really don't care. I care about how I feel about the way I look.
And I think Duncan's right to the point that, like, William, your father ran a menswear store. Mm-hmm. I had always a genuine interest too, same as you growing up. And then later I had the role model of Duncan. Like I told you, William, the story that me and Duncan were at the store one day and he pulled out an orange sweater, red pants, and a green sports coat. And I was looking, I was like, buddy, that's not going to work. The colors don't go together. And he was like, oh, yeah, you'll see. And then so he picks it all up. And then the next shift he walks in wearing that exact outfit, right head to toe. And I bought the exact same thing right after. Because I was like, well, I'll eat my words on this one.
Duncan, I don't know if you're an Office fan, the show, but that sounds very à la Andy Bernard.
It is. It could be. I've seen a few of them, or that is, I mean, I've seen the entire run of them a few times. But anyways,
I'm the only holdout. Like I can't do The Office. The dry humor just rubs me the wrong way.
You're missing out, man. It's the best sitcom ever.
I have to ask you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to ask you. If you took away from that series, because I've watched it like 3 times in its entirety.
Oh, I've watched it 10 times.
The same thing I did, which is that I think the overriding principle of that series is that all people at the heart of it are all evil son of a bitches. Because if you play back through episode after episode, you realize they all have their own agenda. They all have something they want. They all have the idiosyncrasies that are more important than the person next to them. Like at the end of it, I think the point the producer or the writer was trying to get across is they're all bastards.
I mean, yeah. Although I think they toe the line very well with like hating and loving each character, right? Like Michael Scott is just such a selfish son of a bitch. He's such a infantile man, and he can be so rude and crass and ignorant. But then at the same time, you realize he's just a softie who wants a wife and a family. Right?
I agree with 100%. But again, at the core of it is, but he's a rotten, selfish son of a bitch, if you look deeper. Yeah. Nevertheless, total sidebar. Sorry about that, but I had to ask.
But it's for The Office, so it's worth it.
I have nothing to contribute to this conversation.
Come to the dark side, Jason.
Yeah, come to the dark side.
We'll watch some Archer, then we'll get going. Actually, I rewatched some Trailer Park Boys yesterday.
Nice.
That's exactly same, but to the opposite. Just watch it.
I can't say I watch a lot of Trailer Park Boys. I have, but yeah. But Archer's good. He's got his tactical turtlenecks, so
very stylish turtlenecks, half in a black and half in a slightly darker black. Hey, so like we were saying, we're talking about mentorship, we're talking about sales, talking about men's fashion, and I learned pretty much everything I know about sales and most of my management skills from Duncan. Like he was my manager for 5 years, taught me like verbatim the words that I would use when selling customers. And I'm such a nerd that when he would say something, I'd be like, no, hang on, stop. Let me grab a piece of paper and a pen. I'm going to write down the exact words that you're saying, and I'm going to say them exactly the same way you're saying because I know this is going to work.
So Jason, let me interview you for a sec here. Do you have an example of something concrete that you've learned from Duncan, like a specific sales tactic or phrasing? Or
you got something that's called an assumptive sale that Duncan taught me. And that's when you're selling something and you're not going to explicitly ask for the sale. You're going to present it with such certitude and such obvious value that you're just going to assume that it's sold just from having presented it. And you won't do that with a big, expensive, big ticket item because that runs the risk of blowing up in your face. But you're going to do it with a very high added value item that is just going to bring everything together, or that's going to increase the quality of the package that you're presenting. And I know what you're thinking. I'm talking about the pant, the pant accessories. Yep. So not to get into detail, what's what and all that, but there is, certain things you can do with pants, makes them a little bit better. That was always an Assumptive Sale. And watching Duncan go, he would always do it the exact same way. And then when he came to coach me, he said, this is how I do it. And that's kind of in my view, the importance of having mentors is I could have tried a year to try to dial down that exact one sentence, because it was one sentence and the sale would hit 90% of the time. But if I had the mentor, which I did, I learned it in a day. So I saved myself 1 year worth of learning just by paying attention.
And what was that specific sentence?
Well, I won't say it here because now it's something, it's not to say that's proprietary, but
it's a trade secret.
It's a trade secret.
It would essentially be, if I may interject, it'd essentially be, to give a comparison, Will, if you're buying a car and I want to sell a rust proofing on it, I would say to you, after you got all the car and all the paperwork done, I would say, okay, great. I'm just going to grab that over to service guys. They will detail it for you. I'll have it rust proofed at the bottom and have it all ready for you tomorrow. How does that sound?
Right.
Where I'm just rolling it all off my tongue at the same time and getting you to say yes, but I'm sort of wrapping it all up in something else as well.
Right. So you're adding the accessories, or you're adding to the package that you're selling them, essentially.
So I'm setting that up because I want to ask Duncan, how did you learn to sell? And then how did you learn to teach other people to sell?
It's how I learned to sell is pretty much like everything else I've learned, which is I'm very big on, as you know from experience, I will just read, pay attention, listen, ask the key questions, and then just back and back. And I have a good recall and a good memory and relatively photographic. And so that's beneficial. As far as okay, no, I got it. Okay, here we go. Okay, here's how we do. Okay, here's how we try. And unfortunately for me, sometimes it made me a little less understanding, a little less sympathetic with people who might have gone, okay, no, I got to try it again. Okay, no, I got to try it again. And I'd be sitting in my head smiling saying, how do you not get this? I made you say it in front of me 25 times. And it's not fair because not everybody learns the same way. Rolling it out then becomes, to me, you're really similar to when you're selling something, which is that, and here's what I would say to you. Me selling something doesn't mean you have to pay me money for it. I could be selling an idea or a notion. I could want your buy-in. I could want your vote. I could want your support. I'm still selling you something. Me trying to get my daughter to come around to a way of thinking about doing something, I'm still selling her something. That is what it comes down to. So I'm selling you this knowledge in a way that I want you to behave, to work with my customers, et cetera, et cetera. All comes back to the same as me selling you a new suit, which is, do I understand what motivates you? And do I understand what you best respond to? Because again, as I told my daughter and my stepdaughter on their 18th birthday, never forget this. If you take the time to understand, truly understand and know what motivates somebody in your life, you'll get whatever you want. Because you always know how to sell them on something. If you understand what motivates them, what they respond to, you'll always get your way.
So do you find yourself in men's clothing when you are making a sale or a potential sale to a man? Do you find yourself often trying to sell them, not necessarily like a lifestyle, wouldn't go that far, but almost like a certain motivation or ideas outside of the clothes themselves, like whether that's success with women or with your career or and pride, whatever it may be?
There is, from my experience, and this applies to pretty much anything, or it should apply to pretty much anything, and my experience was with clothing, men or women. In the case you're describing, yes, I would say the most common customer experience would be with a gentleman who's like, I don't do this much. I don't know anything about it. I don't spend a lot of money doing it. I don't want to try on a whole bunch of stuff. But I need XYZ. And what you would need to come back to is basically, okay. And I was the biggest fan, as Jason knows, of what I call active listening. Listen to what you're told, repeat it in your own words so that the customer knows that you understand them. And they have the opportunity to go, no, that's not what I said. So in the case of a lot of those men, I can come back to them and say, hey, I get it. You don't care about being a fashionista. You also don't want to look like a monkey on a tree in a suit. You also don't want to look bad and inappropriate and be laughed at. And you don't want to spend $1 million and you want this to be easy. Or in the words of an old friend of mine who worked in IT, who came to see me for new clothes, he handed me his Visa card and said, I just want to be able to get dressed in the dark so I don't worry about what I can wear with what.
See, I never understood that. I know that most men are like that, but I never understood that.
It takes the fun out of it to me, but to a lot of men in those cases, and I'm sure there are women in the same boat, it's I don't want to fight and fuss with and worry about making a mistake and looking foolish and being laughed at and all of the above. So I'll give you the best example I've learned in all those years. Of all the occupations that are the most critical of how the coworkers dress, it will shock you to know that of all the people I dealt with, plainclothes cops were the worst. They would critique what their coworkers wore like it was going out of style. And it was of immense importance to them that the clothes were tailored properly, that they matched well, and I was shocked, but I mean, one after another, this is what I got.
Interesting.
So if you saw a well-dressed guy, it was a cop.
Oh, well, very often.
He was packing.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I had a couple of those too. But I mean, and that was the challenge. Yeah, I need a suit big enough to fit, a holster underneath. But I don't want it to look like a big suit. So, okay, well, that's what we're going to do. But, to your point, yes, very often you were selling something way different than the suit itself. And as I've mentioned to Jason before, nobody out there is selling a product. Nobody. I don't care if it's a house, a car, a piece of clothing. You know what they're selling? They're selling fear. Fear that you're not going to look good. Fear that the Joneses have something better. Fear that you're out of style. Fashion, for example, the term fashion, well, what's in fashion? Fashion, to me, I heard a great saying a long time ago. Fashion is an industry ripoff. Do you look good? Does your style suit you? Are you comfortable? It's the biggest thing I would sell. Are you comfortable? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you look good? And that's what I mean by comfortable. Not are your clothes loose enough? Are you looking in the mirror going, yeah, that's me. That's cool. I can live with that. If that's the case, we're in the kill zone. If instead, I've got the most beautifully tailored suit in the world on you and you're twitching and fidgeting and going, am I going to like it? I would say to you, you're never going to wear this again, are you?
Right.
Because you hate it. In which case, I'm not doing my job. So you were always selling something other than the clothing. And the customers that came in that you could go, I know what you want. That walked out going, as one gentleman I had who'd gotten a promotion and needed a certain look and et cetera, went to his new job out on the prairies for a house hunting trip, went to the office, met everybody, reporting to VPs and higher up. Came back into my store 2 weeks later, not to pick up anything new, not to pick up anything that he left behind, just to say, I went out there on that trip and they all commented on how good I looked. And like, you nailed it. You knocked it out of the park. I went from going to work in jeans and a t-shirt every day to fitting right in like I was a duck in water type thing. So, and that's what you're selling.
I always found the funnest customer was when you took the guy who's a little bit new to dressing up. Maybe it was his first office job. Maybe it was the promotion. Maybe it was a lifestyle change. And he really didn't know where to start. And you'll start by like picking out the jacket and stuff like that. And then you'll bring him over to a table, add shirts. But it's all laid out on a table, so he hasn't quite seen it on him yet. And then you'll send him to the change room with shirt and pants. No use putting the jacket on at that point because you want to see the fit of the shirt and everything without the drape of the jacket over it. And then you get the guy into the 5-way mirror and he's starting to like what he sees. It's a little bit different. It's a little uncomfortable for him because it's a different person looking him back into the mirror. And then you slip the jacket or the sports coat on and you just kind of see him light up a little bit. He just sees the whole thing, and it was always such a sweet and honest reaction. I'm sure you've had a million of these too, Duncan, where you just see the guy be like, "This is exactly what I wanted." Like you, whatever I had in my mind, you were able to translate into reality. And from a sales perspective, that means you did exactly what Duncan said earlier. You listened, you understood what the need was, you took the onus off of him, you just let him do his thing, let him chat, and you just put it all together.
I will,
And it's
just before you go ahead, Will, actually, you made me think of something, if I can. To your point of were you selling something else? One of the stories I would use frequently, and not insincerely, and that's a whole different topic, with younger gentlemen especially, would be if I wanted to sell them a sports coat. Let's say they came in to buy a suit, they weren't in to buy a sports coat. I would put them in the mirror and say, do me a favor, try this on, and slide it over their shoulders and say to them, now I want you to picture this. It's Valentine's Day. Your girlfriend's in the hallway saying, are you ready? Let's go. You come out of the bedroom wearing all of this, dressed up like this, and she can look at you and say, and you did all this for me and you didn't ask me to come and help you shopping, and she's going to be overblown by the result. And yes, that's what I was selling. I was saying, dude, do you want that? Or do you want to wear your cleanest Metallica t-shirt and a pair of ripped jeans?
I just also want to point out a little subtlety that he did there. When in that string of thoughts, when he said, put the jacket on, he didn't say put the jacket on. He said, could you do me a favor? Would you mind trying this on? You're always taking that little defensive step back, like as if he's helping you. And there he's going to want, if you just say, hey, put this jacket on, it's very rough. It's a hard transition. If you say, would you mind doing me a favor? Just slip this on for a moment. He's going to be a lot more receptive to that.
especially in the man world, when some of them are hesitant with fashion or can be, defensive or alpha, if you will. But I was going to say it's a little bit of a balancing act, because Jason, you mentioned you like the guy that comes in that like maybe wants to up his game, but is not very literate in men's fashion. And then, kind of you make their idea come true and more. It's kind of a nice art, because you can't put him in like the most fashion forward thing because you'll scare the crap out of them. But it's just enough that it's absolutely up their game, but enough for them to be comfortable and know that they'll wear this out of the store.
It's just so much that you brought her right to the edge of the comfort zone, and you just put one pinky toe on the other side, just enough to say that he wouldn't have done it by himself without you.
Exactly. And then maybe next time he takes it another step by himself, right? And he comes in and says, I'm going to buy this and this. And maybe it's not even with your help that time. And it just, that's a nice thing to see too.
So, Duncan, how do you go about assessing who's who when they walk into the store? How do you know this person is someone that you can joke with? How do you know this is someone you have to be very formal with? Someone that you can be fashion forward? Someone that's going to be a little rough around the edges and you're going to have to be a little bit shyer? Someone that's going to want you to be more of a bigger presence? How do you figure out who you're talking to?
I think, and again, I think this is pretty much universally applicable to anything you're shopping for, anything you're buying. It should be certainly for the salesperson sitting at the other end of the sale. Some people will be very good at selling any of the above, and some will not. And I think it's largely dependent upon the very fact that the very point you brought up, which is that the ones who are very good are going to be the ones that go, okay, I've seen this movie before. I know what I have to do, what I have to say, and how I have to approach it. I don't mean verbatim, but I mean as in I can lead this sale. I can walk them around. I would have to follow that gentleman around and just let him pick stuff out and throw it on the bench when he wants it, which I'm not interested in doing. I would have to, in the case of this couple, it's actually he doesn't care, but she does. So it's her I have to appeal to. Or conversely, unfortunately, he doesn't want to listen to her speak because it's his shopping trip, so she better not interject. So I got to deal with that sort of bore. I think a lot of it is for every salesperson out there. That's what this comes down to, is when they're standing in front of me, how do I, and sadly, because I hate to use this as an example, it worked out very well, but I encountered one day coworker walked up to me, young lady who is very good and very polite and very well presented. There's nothing I could walk into a store where she would approach me that I would find objectionable and say, no, I don't want your help. And she was the second member of my staff who had approached a gentleman and his wife, and this gentleman was probably in his 60s. And they had approached him, and the first gentleman said, can I, is there anything I can help you find? And he said, he looked at him, didn't even respond politely, and just said, I want somebody with at least 15 years experience doing this. So the first gentleman went, hang on a second, I'll get you somebody who's got more time in here than me. And he went and got this other young lady who had only been there 2 or 3 years. And when she told him, he went, no, I want somebody with at least 15 years experience. And when she came up to me and said, can you help me? I got this gentleman. I hadn't been there 15 years, but I walked up to him and said, politely and very evenly, said, sir, my name is such. Can I give you a hand with something? And when he looked at me up and down and said, how long have you been here? I said, I've been here 6 years. Now, can I help you with something? The point being, oh, no, I wasn't here to be interviewed. If he had said to me, no, I want 15 years experience, I would have said to him politely, unfortunately, I don't have that. I've been wearing men's clothing for more than 15 years. I can give you that. But, and like, honestly, that is exactly how I would have responded. I wasn't going to back down and back away and slink off and say, no, well, too bad for you. Some of it comes down to that. Some of it is being willing to not stand your ground, not have a false ego, but just, say, no, this is me and this is what it's about.
That's a particular type of customer there.
Oh, no, it is. And again, everyone is different. Now, by the end of the sale, what had come out was he was a very nice, polite man, and his wife was a charming woman, and he was burying his mother, who was 90 years old, who he adored, and he was not in the mood to shop that day. So it wasn't that he was crotchety. He was just, and a certain type of person was needed to handle him with that. Is what it amounts to. And in those cases, you can be deferential and formal and all of the above and not joking but not too stiff. With other customers who come in, you are nothing but joking the whole time because that's all they want to do. And I've had people that were charming beyond belief that were both. And I had another gentleman who came in who was one of these high-powered 20-ish car salesman swearing up and down left, right, and center because the suits he bought were effing this and effing that, and the person does not effing know what they're doing, and just up one side and down the other, screaming the whole time. To which, again, I get to just say, I can fix all this for you. You need to stop talking like that. I hate to say it, but that's not going to help anything here. It's not that I'm offended by it or any of the above, but I need you to help me by focusing on the question, the issue at hand. Everybody's going to be different, and I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, it's largely that's what's going to separate whether you're good at what you do or you're not. And I will just always go back to the whole thing I always did, which is that you need to practice active listening and just say, okay, so if I understand you correctly, and then if you go, so if I understand you correctly, you're here to buy a crocodile, but you want a blue crocodile with one tooth, you're in the wrong line of work. But at least they're going to tell you.
Yeah, and that line of, so if I understand correctly, was one of those I said, thank you, Duncan. I'm putting this one in the back pocket. And even to this day, as a manager, I use that daily because it's so important. It tells the person that you're listening to them. It's giving them the opportunity to correct you. And you're not coming to them saying, okay, you want this. You're saying, okay, I think you want this. Are we cool if we proceed?
Plus, even if your listening is bad, let's say you zoned out for a fraction of a second and you missed the key thing they want, by you saying that excuses you pretty much of any error, right?
Impropriety.
Right. Yeah, no, kind of. Unless you do it like 6 times in the same conversation. But the first time you say, if I understand you correctly, blah, blah, blah. And then they go, no, actually this. And you're like, oh, perfect.
Because because I am always trying to crystallize what we're getting at here, whatever we're talking about. I would respond to your question with the one word is empathy. If you can demonstrate empathy properly with any customer you encounter, you'll find a way to manage the interaction at that point. If you're not capable of empathizing with them, their situation, what they're wearing when they walk in the door, et cetera, and listening to them talk, the guy in jeans and a sweatshirt covered in grease who walks on the Mercedes lot and says, yeah, I want to look at your 560s. I don't care that he's wearing jeans covered in grease. He obviously knows what he's talking about and quite likely has the money to buy it. I'm not going to judge him otherwise. If you have empathy and are willing to treat people as people and see past these idiotic prejudgments, you'll figure out when to get past the prejudging them and say, no judgment here, suspend judgment, listen to them, and empathize with the situation. You'll find a way to manage it from there.
So I have a question. So I grew up around a men's clothing store, a small private men's clothing store. And so to me, customer service, I grew up with customer service is everything. And so I grew up where customer service meant that if you walk into a store or shop, if they don't at least acknowledge that you exist minimally, that's like the bare minimum. But at least typically I grew up with knowing that whenever you walk into a store, someone's supposed to at least say, "Can I help you?" or whatever it may be, right? Address you in some form of way. Then I grew older and I came to Ottawa and just small stores in general, are sadly becoming less of a thing, especially this year, but I won't go into that. A lot of people my age seem to feel awkward when they walk into a store and there's actually not even good, but like existing customer service. And they go, "Oh, I don't like when they come and say hi to me or ask if they can, help me with something." And I'm just like, are you kidding me? The worst thing I can ever get going into a store is if it looks like I don't exist. And you can ask my wife, I've left many stores going like, cool, they pretended I don't exist, then this store doesn't exist to me and it never will again. I will never set foot in this store again. So can you guys explain a little bit this weird, I guess, dichotomy between people, but also like you guys sell clothes on commission. So it's kind of like, yes, it's your prerogative, but also I think the customer's prerogative to get at least a hello and a how may I help you, and maybe explain if there are some folks in your experience that feel awkward or just don't even invite that customer service. Anyways, it was a long-winded way of asking that question.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to steal Duncan's fire here, but dude, it's our generation, millennials. We just ruin everything.
That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say, by explanation, when we're talking about a younger crowd, a Gen Z or a millennial group.
So it's a legit question. You guys see it.
It's a legit question.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
So again, what I was going to say is try to understand the mindset of the age we're in, by which I say I cannot be too judgmental, because I can look and say, okay, so now we're in a world of I shop online. Nobody bugs me. The whole world's my oyster. Nobody's on commission. I find the best prices I'm looking for. And then I walk in the store and some 50-year-old guy who's been there for 65 years and makes his money on commission type thing walks up to me and falls all over me and wanders around with me and won't leave me alone. Well, no, of course they're a little hesitant to sign on for that because they're used to. My significant other says, I don't want to shop anywhere in person. I can find whatever I want online. I know what sizes I wear. I don't need to, and I understand where that comes from. I really do. The flip side of it is that, at least in my case, and I know in Jason's as well, I could look at people and say, and I would tell customers point blank, one of my favorites was, listen, if you tell me you want a suit for $49, I'll see if I can help you find one for $49. I don't care. What I care about is helping you get what you're looking for and look as good as you can within reason. Now, if I can't,
you'd be surprised, Will. You'd be surprised.
I will show you the alternatives. And I would always say to them, you're going to tell me what's too much. I have no fear whatsoever that you're going to look at a price tag and go, oh, I didn't want to spend that, but whatever. You're not. You're going to tell me, no, I'm not paying you that much. So let's work off what you're looking for, and then I'll worry about price. I don't care about. And I was telling Jason just before we started talking or recording about working in a store in Ottawa and standing on a busy Saturday afternoon in the middle of my sales floor. Or sorry, no, I was telling my significant other about standing on my sales floor.
So Jason.
So standing in the middle of my sales floor on a Saturday afternoon with my store manager, who's a very urbane, very refined, well-dressed gentleman from the south of France. God love you, Teddy, if you're listening. And a woman probably in her mid to late 40s, very well-dressed, very nicely put together, walks up in the middle of this crowded sales floor on a busy summer Saturday and says at the top of her lungs, "Who wants to make some commission?" What I wanted to do at that point is not suitable to be rebroadcast on air because I was so angry. And so
Right.
when
Yeah.
my store manager, gentleman next to me, said, "Madam, please let me give you a hand," I could not resist saying to her, "Oh, madam, by the way, he doesn't get paid commission." Because he
Right. The
didn't.
one guy that doesn't get paid commission on the
That
floor.
that is not always the motivation of the people trying to help you. Is what I would encourage my millennial Gen Z friends to remember. To wit, we used to have a young lady who worked with us who was dynamite at her job, so good, and very much so because of what I said earlier. She could build empathy with her customers like it was nobody's business. And she used to greet people by saying, "How are you today?" And the ones who would respond by saying, "Just looking," she would go, "Sir, that's not an emotion. How are you today?" Which again, sums up. It's not always that I'm looking at your wallet or trying to get you to turn around so I can see the wallet in your back pocket. Sometimes I'm just saying, "No, I want to give you a hand."
And
Yep.
here's the thing: commission gets a bad rap. There is sleazy salespeople out there, absolutely. But the thing is, they're so easy to spot. Because a good salesperson, yes, they're not going to fall over you, but they're going to get you exactly what you're looking for. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to buy a car and you say, okay, I need 4-wheel drive, I need less than 70,000 kilometers, and it needs to have, I don't know, power AC, let's say. Well, you're not going to go show them the Hummer first thing. Sure, the Hummer might be all of those things, but you're obviously trying to screw them over by like selling them something that they don't even make parts for anymore. That's way oversized. That you're going to be spending $200 a week on gas. That's an obvious bad salesperson just trying to make commission. The good salesperson is going to understand your needs, and sure, they're going to present a few more things as you go, but it's always going to be in line with what your needs are. And Duncan dropped a little nugget earlier, Will. I don't know if you picked up on it. He said that the customer is going to tell you when they're not ready to spend money. And one thing that he always told me, he says, don't hold the customer's wallet. He will hold his own wallet. You keep showing him value and let him decide when to tap out. So that's when the commission part comes in, because yes, you're increasing the sale, but you're increasing things that are relevant to the person and that offer value. And when the person's ready to say no, they'll say no, and that's fine. You say, hey, no problem. But as long as they don't say no, you just keep showing stuff because you don't know. Maybe they don't have a rain jacket. Maybe they don't have a pair of covers for their shoes. Maybe they don't have an umbrella, but it works with the outfit. And if you don't show it, he might not even realize that he's missing those things. And that's
Yep.
proper customer service. Sure, you're racking up the bill and you're building your commission, but you're doing so by offering value to the person.
No, I totally agree with what you started saying in that statement. Is that commission does get a bad rap. Yes, there are shitty people everywhere, right? So there are shitty salesmen on commission and not on commission. That's just the way it works. But like I've said with our generation, I've seen a massive decline in customer service, and you could say that a big part of that is the lack of people who work on commission anymore, right? And one of the only places you see it, yes, there's cars, of course, but is, at least in my world, is men's clothing. And there's a very big difference when you go into Moore's or Harry Rosen's versus a box store or whatever that sells men clothing, and not one person there works on commission and or knows what they're doing.
Well,
That's the big difference too.
And again, if I may, that's the flip side of the same coin that I was mentioning, which is that as the customers in the most recent generations are going towards the whole, no, just leave me alone, I'm used to the whole shopping thing. If we agree that's what's happening, the companies are going, okay, so I need a whole lot less customer touch points anymore because they're fine on their own. Again, a great big generalization, I understand. I do feel it necessary to point out, just for the sake of completeness at this point, that for anybody listening, Moore's does not any longer employ their employees on a commission basis. So if you do walk in there, you should feel no fear of, oh, he's trying to sell me something because he gets paid more. The total sidebar, forgive me. But again, if what you're saying is true and what I'm saying is true, it's a reflection of no, we're in the Amazon generation. I don't need the same amount of intensive customer contact, et cetera, that we had previously. I think the good retailers, whether they're in clothing or otherwise, again, are going to swing back to the whole, you know what's really missing here? And to that point, I have to point out, I read a great article recently talking about the investment bank, JP Morgan's, intention to return to the office as soon as possible with their employees, based on the fact that their CEO recently was interviewed as part of this story and said, I was reviewing quarterlies or monthlies or quarterlies recently with my executive team, wondering how we missed out on this deal, that deal, this deal, that deal. And the response I got was that we lost out to such and such a firm because we didn't go visit them in person to discuss the deal. Mm-hmm. In the age of COVID, we did it all by Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. And by the end of the meeting, the CEO said, I contacted my personal assistant and said, I want you to cancel all my Zoom meetings right now and make personal appointments with all those people. We're not doing this anymore. An extreme example in extreme times, I understand completely, but it still highlights the point that to some extent, nothing is going to replace the person standing in front of me going, you know what? And that's why, having lived where you are in Ottawa back in 2000, in the height of the tech boom, when you would literally hear every day, Will, oh yeah, the new economy is going to crush retail. Nobody's going to go out to shop anymore, period. Everything will be delivered to your house. And at that time, even I said, nope, ain't happening, because human beings will never want to cease having contact and the opportunity to touch, feel, discuss, et cetera, et cetera. So I think smart retailers will realize, no, there's got to be a little more of that. So.
And how do you close the deal? Like you meet the person, you get the buy-in, you build empathy, you build understanding, you show value, you relate to lifestyle. How do you get the sale?
So I'll offer that from both the viewpoint of the seller and of the buyer, if you don't mind. And what I was going to say is that, and that this again applies to, as you were going through that list, to me, this applies to anything you're buying, whether it's a washing machine or a new suit, doesn't matter. From the seller, for me, you just can't be wishy-washy. That's all there is to it. For every single one of the, and what do you think of that? Do you want to do that? Take this as your sales hack number one. The customer always wants to be able to tell you no, because that shows they're in charge, and you're not going to fleece them, and you're not going to run over them with your desire to make commissions. And I'm going to be able to say no, haha. What are you going to do about that? For us, we had a thing. I would show you a whole bunch of stuff that didn't cost that much money, and at different points, I would ask you, "Do you want to pick up?" And you'd go, "No, haha." And I'd say, that's cool, dude. I'll take no on the $25 socks because I just talked you into buying the $1,000 suit. So that's all right by me.
Joke's on you.
Not really, because and this is what I was going to say. The second point is, and they are taught, so I don't mean that facetiously. The first thing is that I'm not wishy-washy when I'm saying, and you want and you need, and as Jason alluded to, one of the phrases is, based upon what you've told me, where I'm relating back to what we discussed at the beginning when I use my active listening to say, if I understand correctly, and when the customer goes, that's it. Now I can come back later and say, look, based upon what you've told me, and they have to, in the words of the one supervisor I had, when you connect a need with a reason to buy, you have a sale. So that, I think, is the thing you always have to remember when you're closing a sales. I need to connect the need that we discussed earlier with the good reason from the buyer, the value base.
So it won't be a hard sell at that point because all the work has been done. It's just like, okay, so what do you say we grab this and we head out front?
In the very job interview for this same job, when I had my second interview, and they said, okay, we want to go through a little sales routine, and you're going to play the salesperson. You don't have to know our policies or practices, whatever, but I want you to. And the lady handed me an overcoat. She said, stood in front of the 5-way mirror and said, now sell me this overcoat. And I went, sure, no problem. Do me a favor. Just stick your arms back for a sec, slid the coat on over, and I explained it. I said, and you would have laughed because it was textbook what I trained out for years. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, when I finished talking, she went, okay, now I want a hard close. And I went, so what do you say? Wrap this up too? Which is, it's not so what do you think?
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for the sale. At some point, they're gonna have to go home eventually, so they might as well leave of what they've been working on for the last hour.
From the viewpoint of the person purchasing, when it comes to wrapping up a sale, what I'd say is, again, it's connect the need with the reason to buy. Namely, I as a seller can do all of that and use those hard closes and those phrases over and over again, such as based on what you told me. Because as a seller, when you say to me, so what do you say to this? I should quickly be able to go, he's met my needs, he stayed within my budget, he's blah, 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 blah. And unless I have a specific reason to say no, and, as we've gone over a couple of times, if I would say to you, so this is a sport coat, you can wear it here, there, and so on, so on. The best part about it is it's half price today. I can have that altered and ready for you with your pants instead of sit on Thursday, okay? A good answer, a good reason for you to say no, or an acceptable one, would be the classic,
I need it by Monday.
I need a sports coat, but I really don't like the color of this. In which case, I don't slip it off you and say, oh, well, let's move on to something else. I say, let me find you something else. Wait right here. But again, once I've satisfied the needs, the wants, etc., and I've connected the reason to buy it with your stated need, I should have no problem looking you dead in the eye and going, okay, you want to go to the cash with me? We'll get this all wrapped up for you.
So I guess for the end, I'd like to just talk men's fashion here, which is something Jason and I enjoy doing. So I have a few questions for you, but all of us, just a kind of open discussion, lightning round here. The first one is, what is an unlikely, because Jason mentioned a few kind of, crazy color combinations that he didn't believe you could pull off, and turns out you did. So my first one is, what unlikely pairing in men's fashion goes together surprisingly well? So that could be colors, it could be textures, it could be patterns, it could be items, or a mix of all of the above.
Okay, so we're on pure clothing nerd time here, right?
Let's do it.
All right, so here's what I'll offer you. And what I was actually going to wear today before it clouded over and got nasty outside here in Moncton, and then I realized I didn't have the pants to empty it anyways, was in light of summer being here, and I understand there might be an episode coming out about summer fashion sometime shortly as well.
We just recorded that one, yeah.
I have, I didn't want to give it away and steal your thunder, but hey, I have a beautiful cotton red, fire engine red sports coat and a brand new pair of banana yellow khakis that I just got.
Wow.
And those colors for summer look brilliant together, absolutely. So now more commonly, I think is what I'd say is the one that I'm really fond of and try to put together as often as possible is brown and purple.
I can see that.
Absolutely, they go together.
And see, I've seen this red jacket. Duncan proudly showed me his canary yellow pants a while ago. Yeah. I would never dare to put that combination on me.
In the middle of summer.
I know exactly how he's going to do it, and it's going to look phenomenal.
With deck shoes and no socks, a white polo shirt. Oh, without a doubt. So.
Yeah, I can see it, but like Jason and I always say, is be congruent, right? So at the end of the day, be true to yourself, and that sounds very Duncan, I guess.
No, and you hit the nail right on the head as far as the number. We sort of touch on this, and if I can do this before we continue, I would just say quickly. I always try to boil things down to threes, basically. So if you're talking about how do we get young men into, and how do we make them understand it's important to dress appropriately, and how do we get the generation back to the point where you do these things, I would say number one is understand there's going to be a cost involved. Like you can't change that. Please don't wander into a store like I had so many customers and look down and go, $300 for a suit? My God, when did it get so expensive? Well, I didn't go shopping for a brand new Cadillac without looking up that it's going to cost me $80,000. And you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go out to buy a washing machine without realizing you're going to spend $500 to $1,000. Why did you come into my store and think I was going to sell you a suit and a bag for $79.99? Understand there's a cost involved, but it's a cost benefit like anybody else. You have to be able to look and say, what am I getting out of this? What's it going to do for me? Why should I have it? Et cetera. So I think you have to understand that. And so I don't care if you're not updating, you're not chasing fashion trends. I'd encourage you not to. But if you just started university, and we're always assuming here you have the wherewithal to do this. Please don't misunderstand me for a minute. Whether that wherewithal is, as you alluded to earlier, stuff is so on sale, so many different places. The market's so competitive. With the internet, you have the world as your oyster to shop from. There are so many opportunities. I'm still assuming you have the wherewithal, so please forgive me. When you get into university, and I've seen a lot of clients like this, you should start with, okay, I'm a grown-up now. I need a bit of a grown-up wardrobe. As I go off to school, it starts with I need to have a suit in case something comes up that I have to wear, whether it's a wedding, funeral, whatever the case may be. I don't need 8 suits. I don't need a suit with 6 different shirt and tie combinations, but I need a suit with 1 shirt and tie suitable for all that. And I need a sports coat to wear on campus. Whether I wear it with jeans, I wear it with that. If I'm going to a reading, I'm going to a fraternity night, I'm going to whatever, I'm not going to wear my bloody suit, but it needs something to look like an adult. That's all there is to it.
Take it from a guy who did a degree in exercise science. Yeah, that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, no. But
we showed up to class wearing sweatpants and sweatshirts.
But this goes to my second point. And this is what I was going to say. This goes to my second point, guys, really, which is this. There is a cost involved. Here's the second point. Understand something. I don't care who you are. You may say it's not fair that you didn't get that job because you have a septum piercing, which my daughter has. She also wears dresses most days she goes out. Her hair is the same color it was when she was born. Makeup conservatively, if at all applied, she's all that. She has a septum piercing. You may not think it's fair that the person who interviewed you for the job at the bank passed you by, and the only reason you think of is because you have a septum piercing. But guess what? That's the way the world turns. Some people are going to do that. So whether you like it or not, you can't help but make a first impression. And that will be good with some people and that will not with some people. And I would hate to think that you, being the person you are and the stand-up guy and the one who is out there saving the rainforest and building houses in Africa and installing irrigation, you were passed by because you showed up in jeans and a t-shirt. It's not right.
Yeah.
But it is going to happen. So if you don't want to be judged for that, I'm not telling you to show up dressed like the Prince of Wales every day. I'm telling you to make sure you're cognizant, as I said in the beginning, of how your appearance is going to be taken by others. And the last to that point is that means you have to understand when you need to dress. Now, going to class in university during your degree, during class time, that may be completely appropriate. If, however, you were invited to join a fraternity on campus who are having a wine and cheese night for new pledges, would you show up like that?
Depends what the activity is.
I did at a university where I'd not show up like that, but I was invited to it, and the party was like that. Mm-hmm. And at the frat house that they had, it was always jeans, sweatshirt, et cetera. But when you showed up at that party, every single one of 200 people there were wearing a sports coat.
And it's a good excuse to dress up too. Like that's what I find exciting whenever there's a night out where you can, it's like, yeah, I should probably wear a suit, or it's like, should or should I not? But it's giving me that vibe. Wear a suit. What the hell? Like, worst case, you overdressed.
Because of course, people who typically aren't doing this world don't have 2 closets like I do full of dress clothing. The bottom line is, for these guys, especially, we're going to take a Gen Z guy right now just starting university saying, I want to do this, but I don't have $1 billion and I ain't going to go through that much work. Here's what I would say to you. If you're going to do something, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, next week, that is not something that's part of your everyday life and involves another person, if it's special, involves people, you need to dress differently. You don't need to wear a sports coat necessarily every time. You don't need to wear a suit every time. But different times, you're going to wear different ones, to my point. So I go to the doctor's this week. That's part of life. I go to the grocery store. That's part of life. I don't need to dress up for any of that. I can wear whatever I normally wear. Next week, however, there's a girl on campus that asked out and we're going to a movie. You need to up your game. The week after that, unfortunately, her grandfather passed. You're going to the funeral. You need to step up your game again. The week after that, you have a award ceremony for a club you're in on campus. You need to change the way you dress for that. By which I don't mean every time you need to change. I mean you can wear your jeans and sweatshirt every day when you go to class. But for each of those events, you need to dress better. You cannot go to meet her parents wearing the same jeans and t-shirt you wore to class that day. You can. you can also get thrown out of the house. So my whole point is I'm not
Fair.
asking you to be a fashionista. I'm not asking you to subscribe to 1,000 different rules. I'm saying be cognizant of the fact that before I present myself to her parents for the first time, I don't want to look like everybody else in my classroom at 30 people, because that's not what this is about. If you live by that, you're good.
So I want to toss a couple like garments at you. Tell me how you'd wear it real quick. Denim shirt.
Oh, I have one. I love it. Denim shirt is a
Same here.
Denim shirt
I
is
wear it all the time.
staple of a gentleman's wardrobe, as far as I'm concerned. Like, it really is a staple piece. I wear it with, again, photographic memory. I can remember a GQ cover from April of 1989 of James Woods on the cover wearing a tan linen suit, denim shirt, and a purple tie. And like that, I have the same tan.
The purple tie throws me off.
I have
but the rest works just fine in my mind.
It works with the blue.
I have the same, and you know this because you've seen it. I have the same beautiful tan bird's eye Emilio Zania custom suit that I used to wear at work with my denim shirt and suspenders and a knit tie. Like, and so I can wear it with a pair of chinos. It gives you that little more of I work.
Yeah, mine's very casual, but I wear it all the time, and I wear it with black jeans, and it works very well. I also wear it with a lot of my shorts. So I'll have like fun shorts of any color, really, or any pattern. And then I've just got the solid blue denim shirt.
See, I couldn't do it with black jeans, not because they're black and blue, because they're both denim. Sorry, dude. Canadian tuxedo.
Okay.
Canadian tuxedo's in, though. Very in.
Cardigan. How you wear a cardigan? Let's say, like William, the one you have that also I know Duncan has, that I almost showed up because I almost bought it from Duncan too, and showed up at your place one Christmas that you're wearing. It's a
big shawl neck. It's a big sweater.
The big shawl neck. It has beiges. It has browns. It has blues. I think it's some purples, reds, like something like a multicolored cardigan. Like that's how you wear that.
It's what they call Donegal tweed, which is what I was telling you. I just bought in a turtleneck the other day from this one company. How do I wear it as a cardigan? That to me is a heavier set, definitely winter item that I wear. It's where I wear that with corduroy pants, checked shirt, almost like you can envision me sitting in front of the fireplace with a snifter of brandy in my hand, or snifter of brandy in my hand. Like, that's definitely the look to me that it goes with. Now, more casually going out, I'm not saying jeans with almost any of this, because everybody wears jeans and thinks you can wear everything with jeans, and we'll leave it at that. But I'm definitely, that to me is a little more, you've talked texture and fabric before. That to me is a little more where I need to be cognizant of. It's a bigger, chunkier look, chunkier fit. And that's the look I'm going to present with it, so to speak. I could wear with flannel pants, like dress pants is what I'm getting at in the winter as well, with a tie underneath it, anything like that. But I'm not wearing that in the middle of July, let's just say. And I'm not wearing that with a t-shirt underneath. That just says I'm sloppy trying to look dressed up.
So I know this is one of your favorite garments, an Ascot. How you wearing an Ascot?
Bringing back the Ascot.
I can wear an Ascot anywhere. I'm going to tell you. I went to a conference in Las Vegas for store managers, and right after I left the bar on the party night, which I did, yes, on purpose because I was going to play poker. I sat down at this poker table in Caesar's Palace, which is mostly tourists surrounding you. There was a gentleman sitting across from me. I would guess he was 27, 30-ish. Average height, short black hair, tattoos up and down his arm, jeans, t-shirt, by which I'm not trying to pass judgment on. I'm saying this is the picture that you had. And this gentleman didn't say a word to me. I was wearing a velvet blue velvet dinner jacket, with a tuxedo shirt with the Ascot underneath it, black pants. And this gentleman didn't even look at me. He just played with his chips and says, I must say, that's a lovely Ascot you're wearing. That's what they call it, right? and I mean, again, to me, that's a compliment. You're like, going, yeah, no, that's it. And by the way, my girlfriend hates them. She detests it.
So what are Jason and I disagree here, but what are your thoughts on bolo ties?
Man, I can't do them.
No, so again, to your point earlier, and you both hit on it, I would say also to the young guys out there, be who you are. be who you are and be true to that person and that look. And if you happen to be a Texas Wildcat rancher making millions off your oil wells, wear your jeans, white shirt, and bolo tie all day long. I got no problem with that. If that's the image you want to present, if you want to try to redo Bruce Springsteen on the cover of Tunnel of Love, go right ahead. Like, I mean, if this
Nice,
is
yeah.
if this is
Very
something,
accurate.
if this is something you're trying to present the image of, or something that jives to you, go right ahead. I am, for your listeners, I'm 6 foot, 135 pounds, and have been all my adult life. I am not the picture of big and rugged and sporty. But as Jason can tell you, I will go to work in the classic 1985 Ralph Lauren pictorial look and carry it off and do it fearlessly, because I own half a dozen rugby tops that I wear with jeans. And like, this is not me. In the lexicon of your guys' previous episode, I would be more looked at as a refined look. But I can carry that off if it's done appropriately, if I feel comfortable, and if it's in the right setting, most importantly. I'm never going to a funeral dressed like that, but I'm also never going to watch a football game wearing a 3-piece suit.
Depends with who. But, so last one for me, and Jason and I have done this one before in previous podcast, is black suit, gray suit, blue suit. Rank them as of today, not whenever. So in today's pretext, so black, gray, blue suits, you have to rank them from number 1 to number 3 of importance to you in your wardrobe or everyday life.
First to buy, second to buy, third to buy.
Medium gray, only because dark gray, I don't get it. That doesn't work on me very well. But what I'd say to the listenership is anything in a gray, assuming it's not too light, too summery type thing. You're going to start off, young man starting off.
Business gray.
Yep, and business gray, because that will get you to a job interview, a funeral, a wedding, anything above. And again, I'm trying to appeal to I don't have $1 billion in $1 billion hours to spend on my wardrobe. You definitely need a medium gray suit properly. After that, I will get something in a blue. Why? Not in a new Air Force blue or something in a wild plaid, something in a blue, navy or medium, because that's a little more dressy, a little more formal. That's what was typically referred to as a banker suit, meaning it was that dressy. It'll get you through, again, the more, I don't want to say serious, but the more serious looks you're going for type thing. Lastly, to the point that as of when I stopped working, I have not and have never in my entire life owned a black suit, and probably never will. Because unless you're a Blues Brother or a Mormon, there's really no need for it. So, no, in all honesty,
we're going to have to put Duncan and William's father in a room and let them fight this one out.
The thing is, in all honesty, it's just not a necessity. Now, that happens.
I agree in today's context, it's not.
No, but again, I've got a lot more years on this planet than a lot of people who are talking about fashion now. And I will tell you, it was never a necessity. However, I will say again, if in being true to yourself, you think about, I don't know, for example, think about looking at Brad Pitt in a black suit and a white shirt and a black tie. If that's his look, George Clooney said, they'll look great in almost anything they wear. And if that's their idea of formal, nothing wrong with that. Somebody in the press you guys will have seen, or in the world stage, who I'm very fond of the way he presents himself, is Emmanuel Macron.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And again,
French president,
he is
Prime
just
Minister.
the height of refined is what it amounts to. But it's always white shirt, black tie, and whatever suit he's wearing. And that is, Jason can tell you, looking at me every day at work, that is not the way I dress. But he looks great. And the best way to put it that I could describe to folks is that overall, again, talking to our younger listeners, the way it was put to me once, I'll again try to put present day celebrities in their place. Adam Levine, dressed up like Joe Biden dresses every day, is still going to look sexy to most women because he's Adam Levine and he's wearing a suit and shirt and tie. It looks great, right? Adam Levine, and I'm thinking about, I don't know if you've ever seen it, he did a video with Lonely Island called YOLO. It's got Kendrick Lamar in it too, actually. It's hilarious anyways. And he's there.
This guy's more into the pop the pop music than us today.
Exactly.
And look, I got skills, yo. You guys are full millennials. So like wannabe millennials.
Oh, we're old souls in a lot of respects, so you're not going to get a fight out of me.
We're crotchety old millennials.
What I was going to say is, I thought about it, and in this video, you see him in full, like in jeans and hoodie or t-shirt or like tank top. Which, by the way, Jason's right. No man should ever wear a tank top.
I will give William credit though; he does wear it well. It does fit. It does fit his silhouette well.
And I think I wear it in appropriate times.
That is true.
Like I don't show up and you're like, why are you wearing a tank top right now? You should be wearing a dress shirt.
But anyway, and
That's weird.
You see all the tattoos and everything and that, and this is Adam Levine. And as we talked about before with the whole rakish look, or as you guys talked about, if you're Kanye or anybody like that, you can pull that off. No big deal. So seeing him in a full suit, immaculately cut suit, shirt, tie, crisp white shirt, et cetera, most women are still going to say, God damn, he looks good.
And most likely there's going to be a rakish accent there. You're probably going to see the tattoos peeking out the bottom of the dress shirt.
My point being, however, seeing Joe Biden dressed like Adam Levine in that video is never going to look good.
Agreed. But the one thing I will say about the black suit is that throughout time, I think it's fairly safe to say that if a guy shows up in a well-fitted black tux or suit and with black tie, throughout time, pretty much it's always like a safe, presentable, very formal look.
I would agree with you 100%, without a doubt. That brings to the point of the topic which you'll probably agree with as well. But I'll throw it out there because Jason knows I'm a big fan of this. I just bought a new one custom. Every guy listening, if you only buy one piece of dress clothing in your entire life, please make it a navy blue blazer. Whatever else you do, I don't care if you skip the suits entirely. Own a navy blazer and a pair of gray pants because you are never going to be underdressed or too overdressed wearing that. So,
I think that's good advice. Yeah. So, Jason, take it home.
All right. Well, Duncan, thank you very much for participating with us today. I hope everyone got some value, a little bit of sales, a little bit of fashion. We'll love to have you on for a follow-up episode.
Absolutely, anytime, man.
I think we could just do lightning rounds forever. just talk shop. I'm cool with that.
I've known this man for 5-6 years now. This is the quietest that I've ever known Duncan. Like he is holding back 90% of how much of just verbal deluge that he can spout out. This is the calmest this person can possibly be, and we have material for days. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to offer to your listeners is that like you guys, you have a great format, you have a great like overriding subject matter in that, which is that and it ties into fashion like this. You need to be yourself when you're doing stuff. There's no two ways about it, and that includes dressing yourself. Just remembering that there's a cost, there's an appropriateness to every situation, and your image is the one thing, as they always say, you've got one chance to make a first impression. That's it. So when you drop $3,000 on a brand new set of rims for your monster truck, and isn't that look cool, and then walk into my wedding wearing a suit and a bag, so you're seen in and around your truck a total of 10 minutes a day, but you're at work for 8 hours. How freaking cool do you really think you look?
Yeah, prioritization. I'm with you.
So I think William and me, we can cover the fashion 101, how to dress 101 and the basics, and we'll bring Duncan in for the master's and the PhD level courses.
There you go. So Duncan, thanks a lot for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here.